New threats of nuclear attacks are rumbling out of North Korea again today, aimed directly at the U.S., and the Pentagon is responding, while U.S. intelligence and military officials are wondering just what this new and untested 28-year-old leader might be up to. Our Pentagon correspondent Jim Miklaszewski is on duty from there tonight. Jim, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. Today's warnings from North Korea are the latest in a series of provocative threats, which have forced the U.S. and South Korea to plan for possible military retaliation. The North Koreans claim they put their long-range missiles on high alert, aimed at American targets in Guam, Hawaii, and the U.S. mainland. U.S. officials see no sign of an imminent attack, but they're taking no chances. The U.S. and South Korea signed a military agreement just last week that in the event of a North Korean attack, the two allies could combine forces for a counterattack. Now, officials here don't believe that North Korean President Kim Jong-un wants a full-scale war, but some fear that his unpredictability makes him extremely dangerous, Brian.
Jim Miklaszewski watching it all from the Pentagon tonight. Jim, thanks.
They're issuing yet another threat, this time against the United States. They issued something similar a few days ago, saying that they had their capabilities to strike at these U.S. bases in Hawaii and Guam, and also at areas on the U.S. mainland. What they've said now is that they've put their relevant forces, their strategic missile command, their long-range artillery, on a state of high alert in preparedness to do that. It's difficult to say, of course, given the volatile and unpredictable nature of the North Korean regime, whether this is a real threat, a credible threat, or whether it's just more bluster. But certainly the country is using increasingly strong language when it comes to talking about its enemies in the United States and other countries as well. Take a listen to North Korean television making this announcement earlier today.
From this moment, the KPA Supreme Command will put on the highest alert all the field artillery units, including strategic rocket units and long-range artillery units, which are assigned to strike bases of the U.S. imperialist aggressor troops in the U.S. mainland and on Hawaii and Guam and other operational zones in the Pacific, as well as all the enemy targets in South Korea and its vicinity.
Well, Benita, North Korea appears to make these threats, this bluster, in response to perceived threats against it that it sees. And I think this one is in relation to an announcement by the United States and its ally South Korea, of course, both North Korea's enemies, that they've joined in a military alliance that would mean that the United States would join with South Korea in attacking the North in response to any attack on South Korean territory. Previously, it had been up to the United States to decide whether or not at its discretion to join in any South Korean response to a North Korean attack. Now they've formalized it in a military document, Benita.
Yeah, and it seems as though that some would read that agreement is actually the level of response is, I guess, lowering the level of provocation, I should say, that the North would make on the South in terms of before it would be an actual invasion. And now the agreement would also include shelling as well.
That's right. So potentially the danger is much higher of the United States being drawn into a conflict on the Korean Peninsula. But I don't for one second think that's the reason behind this agreement, this document. I mean, I'm sure that the hope is that this document brings to bear a deterrent effect on the North Korea to try and prevent them from carrying out a sort of small-scale attack on territory in South Korea, like they did on this place right here, Yongpyong. This island 3 years ago in 2010 was attacked by North Korean artillery posts. At least 4 South Koreans were killed, and they've been threatening in recent weeks to do the same yet again. It's hoped that the deterrent effect of having the United States legally bound to join South Korea in a response, if it's asked to do, may hold North Korea back from carrying out anything like that in the future.
North Korea is suspected of torpedoing a South Korean warship in 2010, killing 46 sailors. They also shelled a border island and killed civilians. Now, because of a new agreement with South Korea, similar attacks could bring the U.S. military and nearly 30,000 Americans into the fight.
It's lowering the bar in that it raises the possibility of a new kind of conflict on the Korean Peninsula.
New meaning a limited, localized fight. The U.S. has always been obligated to help South Korea in an all-out war. But this agreement formalizes a joint response to even small-scale attacks. A defense official says examples include the North sending ships into South Korean waters, flying fighter jets into restricted airspace, or shelling those islands like it did 3 years ago. The official says South Korea would still conduct any initial response.
The problem comes if North Korea then retaliates in turn and you have a spiral of escalation. There is the possibility, hypothetically, that things could get so serious that we would become involved.
Retired General Walter Sharp commanded U.S. Forces Korea when the talks started on this new agreement.
There's been, a lot of work done between the Republic of Korea and the United States on provocation responses. What should we do if North Korea does another kinetic attack?
Sharp says there has been intense planning for the right response to North Korea's next provocation.
That holds something at risk for Kim Jong-un so that he'll think twice before doing another attack.
In fact, North Korea's leader recently threatened to wipe out South Korean military units on another one of those border islands. U.S. officials say they normally don't talk about agreements like this, but one of the reasons they are this time is to send a direct message to North Korea. Chris Lawrence, CNN, The Pentagon.